In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Ruby's, the restaurant in F8 Islamabad, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I actually wasn't planning on reviewing it at all because I'd read some reviews and I'd heard some, stories from people who didn't have a good experience here. But then I happened to come here last week and I had no intentions of recording or reviewing or filming or anything of the sort. And I ended up having a really good experience. So, I want to put Rubies to the test. I'm not going to review it once. I'm not going to review it twice. I'm going to review it thrice. Today is actually day 2 of me coming here and having their food. So I'm actually going to cut to day 1 now, where I filmed just a little bit right after I decided that, oh my god, the food here is really nice. So let's cut to day 1 now. Okay, so quick context for day 1. I honestly didn't even plan on reviewing Rubies this day. I wasn't feeling great, my appetite was basically non existent, and I came in fully expecting to just order a soup and call it a day. That was the mindset, which is why I didn't really film much of the place. But then the food started coming out. My friends ordered mains, and I ordered a chicken velouté soup. And I was genuinely surprised by how good everything looked. The presentation was solid. This wasn't your typical Islamabadi, let's throw some coriander on a plate and call it fancy situation. You could actually tell some thought had gone into how the food was plated, and that immediately got my attention. That's when I thought, okay, maybe I do need to document this. And maybe I need to come back properly when my appetite is back. Starting with my soup, I usually avoid these white sauce creamy soups in Islamabad because a lot of restaurants here just use straight up packaged cream as the base, which always gives me indigestion. So this was a bit of risk, but I was very happy to see that this soup was done properly. It was made with a base of butter and flour and not cream, and I could taste the chicken stock in every single bite, and it had this really silky, velvety texture. It was well seasoned, and the chicken actually had flavor, which is rare for soups like this. They did add a little cream on top, but it was added as a garnish and it was not the entire base of the soup, and I appreciate that. The garlic bread on the side was also nice and crispy, it wasn't soggy, and overall, it was a really nice, solid soup. I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10, which is very high for me when it comes to such soups. One of my friends ordered the chicken marinara, and again, great presentation. It had proper rocket leaves on top and not spinach pretending to be rocket leaves, which honestly deserves appreciation in Islamabad. The sides were potato gratin instead of boring mashed potatoes, and they were crispy on top and fluffy inside, very nicely done. The marinara sauce actually tasted like tomatoes and basil and not ketchup, and the chicken breast was juicy, tender, and not dry at all. There were fresh mushrooms in there too, which just pulled everything together really nicely. This was genuinely one of the best chicken mains I've had in Islamabad. I would give it a 10 out of 10. Yes, a full 10 out of 10. The aglio e olio was another pleasant surprise. There was no cream as it should be. I've had aglio e olio in Islamabad which actually had cream in it. This did not have it, thankfully. It was nicely cooked. It was proper al dente pasta. They'd added these big chunks of garlic which brought great flavor. But I would have personally liked the garlic to be slightly crispier for texture, but overall it was done really well. I would give this aglio e olio a 9 out of 10. I also got a ginger lime mojito, which was perfect for how much nausea I was feeling. I wasn't feeling great that day. So, this was great. It was very refreshing and very well balanced. And now the dessert. We ordered the burnt Basque cheesecake, and as someone who isn't big on dessert but loves cheesecake, I had high expectations. Presentation wise, it was beautiful. It looked exactly how a burnt Basque should. Texture wise, though, this is where it fell a bit short for me. It leaned more towards dry than creamy, and for this sort of cheesecake, I want that really soft, almost custardy center. It wasn't bad by any means. I mean, I still enjoyed it, but I've had better versions. So for me, this was a 7.5 out of 10. It was decent, but it wasn't the standout of the meal. Overall, though, day 1 went surprisingly well, way better than I expected, especially considering I wasn't even planning to eat properly. And I left knowing one thing for sure: once my appetite was back, I had to return to Ruby's and actually give this place a proper shot. Hello and welcome back to another day at Ruby's. This is my second visit and it came a few weeks later. Now, this time round, I came in with a very different mindset. The first visit was accidental, it was low effort, zero expectations. This visit, fully intentional. I came knowing I was doing a proper, full fledged review, which meant I finally got shots of the exterior, the interior, the whole vibe, etc. And honestly, it's a really lovely place. The outdoor seating especially deserves a mention. It was green, peaceful, and set up really nicely with shaded umbrellas so that it worked for both summer and winter. It's the kind of outdoor space where you'd actually want to sit for a long meal. I loved the area, but because it was still quite hot that day, we decided to sit indoors. Inside, the vibe was just as nice. It was very tastefully done. There was lots of wood, wooden furniture, which is completely my vibe. I love spaces that lean into warm wooden tones rather than trying too hard to be trendy. And what I really liked was how the greenery from the outside sort of peeked in through the windows. It made the whole place feel calm and balanced. It also wasn't too noisy, which I appreciated, although to be fair, I did go at a time when it wasn't super packed. Still, overall, the place felt peaceful, it was well thought out, and very easy to sit in for a long time. Now, on to the food. This time, I made a conscious decision to order something completely different from my first visit. Since I knew I'd be coming back a third time as well, I wanted to try as much of the menu as possible instead of repeating myself. And that's when the Alex pasta caught my eye. Just the description alone had me sold. It's this vegetarian pasta born during World War II. It had cherry tomatoes, garlic, chili flakes. I was sold. If you followed me for a while, you know this already. I love simple pastas. Cherry tomatoes, garlic, olive oil. That's my holy trinity. My expectations were high, and when the pasta arrived, my expectations were exceeded. Please look at this. This dish is a piece of art. The glossy cherry tomatoes, the parmesan shavings, the fresh basil, it honestly looked like a Christmas tree on a plate. And taste wise, it was love at first bite. When a pasta is done right, when the olive oil is properly emulsified with the pasta water, when the garlic and tomatoes are cooked just right, there is nothing better. And the pasta was al dente, the whole technique was spot on. If you've been following me for a while, you would know that I've mentioned that my favorite pasta in all of Pakistan is the chili prawn linguine at Kot Roti in Karachi. That's my number one pasta. But I think this just became a very close second. It's a completely different pasta, it's vegetarian instead of seafood, but it is just as delicious. The only issue I faced was the chili. It was a bit overpowering, almost biryani level spicy, and after a few bites, the heat started to dominate everything else. I don't mind a little bit of chili flakes in pasta. I put them in myself as well when I make pasta at home. As it stands, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 and I highly recommend it whether or not you're vegetarian. My friend ordered the mushroom truffle burger, and you know me, I'm not a huge burger person. I usually only enjoy smash burgers, but I'll usually steal a bite. Flavor wise, it was great. The truffle flavor came through in every bite, but texture wise, that's where it fell short. The beef patty was a little dry, and when it comes to burgers, juiciness is a big deal. That's not a half point issue, that's a full point or two that I'm taking off. So for me, this burger gets a 7.5 out of 10. It wasn't bad, it was enjoyable, but it has the potential to be a 9 if they improve the fat content and the juiciness. And then for the dessert, we shared a creme brulee. First of all, the presentation was stunning. Ruby's really knows how to present desserts. This isn't accidental, this is clearly well thought out, and whoever designed their dessert plating deserves credit. The caramelized sugar topping was great. It was crunchy, it was properly torched, it wasn't burnt, no complaints there. But the custard underneath, it wasn't chilled, like at all. And that's a problem because half of the pleasure of eating a creme brulee is the contrast of the warm, crunchy, caramelized sugar on top and the cold, silky custard underneath. Here, the custard was hot all the way through. So, again, 7.5 out of 10 from my side. Something that could very easily have been a 9 if they had fixed the temperature issue. Overall, though, the second visit was still a success. The pasta was phenomenal. The burger and dessert just needed minor tweaks. And honestly, I'm still confused by the terrible reviews that this place gets online. I'm being hypercritical still and intentionally because Ruby's has a higher price point. And even then, the quality of ingredients, the presentation, the service, the techniques, all are solid. So far, my experience still doesn't match the internet outrage on Google reviews. And that's exactly why I decided to come back a third time. Before I go in and actually share how my third experience at Ruby's went, I just want to talk about one thing. I was having a look at their reviews. So Ruby's has a 3.8 rating on Google, and that's very surprising for me because so far I've had a really good experience. But then I decided to Google some other restaurants that I don't like in Islamabad and check their ratings. One of those restaurants being Expectation, and that has a 4.5 rating. In what world does Expectation in Islamabad get a 4.5 and Ruby's get a 3.8? I thought maybe, the two restaurants aren't really comparable. So I checked Bistro Noir's rating, and Bistro Noir also has a 4.3-star rating. And I'm just sitting here wondering, am I doing something wrong? I'm not. It's just that I feel, something that we often overlook when we're following food vloggers. And I say this because I'm trying to be one. Everyone has their own tastes, everyone has their own preferences, everyone has their own likes and dislikes, and you should not watch anybody's videos with this impression that they're the authority. Oh my god, just because this person has said it, I absolutely, have to go and try it. You should be very well aware of what you like and what you dislike, so that the chances of you facing a disappointment once you go to a restaurant that was recommended by an influencer are lowered. So, for instance, I don't like those commercial creamy pastas, creamy Alfredo tikka pastas. I've said that many times on my channel. And I would probably be the worst person to take a recommendation from for a creamy, Alfredo tikka pasta because I hate all of them equally. So I may not be the right person. Regardless, be mindful, be aware of what you like, what you dislike before you go to a restaurant, before you try out the food. Because let's face it, these restaurants aren't cheap. You shouldn't go throw your money at something that you already don't like just because, an influencer recommended it and then complain about how influencers are all fake. Anyway, enough yapping. Let's check out Rubies for the third time in a year in this video. Day three at Ruby's, and this time it was a completely different vibe. I was here with a new set of friends. It was December, proper Islamabad winter, and honestly, winters in Islamabad just hit different. The sun was shining, it wasn't freezing, so we decided to sit outdoors, and it just felt very Islamabad. I genuinely don't think any place does winter quite like Islamabad. This time round, I went straight into the food. I've been here twice before, so I already knew the vibes, the decor, everything. This was about the experience of tasting everything new and sharing it with friends who were now asking me for recommendations. For starters, I went with the ground beef tacos. First of all, can we talk about the size? They were tiny, just three pieces in one portion, but that worked perfectly for our table of three. The shells were crisp, not the soft, floppy kind that I usually dislike, and they held everything together really well. The beef itself was properly cooked, juicy from the fat, there was no water, and it had that lovely, smoky, roasted flavor. You could tell it was proper bhuna hua beef, for lack of a better term. Every bite had the right balance of seasoning. There was also a little tangy dressing on top. I think it was sour cream, which contrasted beautifully with the savory beef. The only minor thing I'd say, if I'm really being nitpicky, is that there could have been a little bit more salsa. I just wanted a little bit more veggie in each bite. These tacos were really, really well done. I'd give them a 9 out of 10. Then came the corn tempura, which I've never tried before. My friend really wanted to try a vegetarian appetizer as well. And guys, look at this presentation yet again. The dish looked like a piece of art yet again. The batter on the outside was perfectly crispy but not oily at all. You could feel the crunch without feeling greasy on your fingers. And inside, it was packed with sweet corn that was soft but still retained a little bit of bite to it. The contrast of textures here was amazing. There was the crunchy batter outside and the soft corn on the inside. And then on the top, there was this tangy, slightly spicy seasoning with a little bit of lime and fresh herbs in it, and a little drizzle of sauce that brought everything together. Every bite was a little explosion of flavor. I absolutely loved this. It was crunchy, sweet, tangy, spicy, all at once. I've never had anything quite like this in Islamabad, and I was blown away. This was a 10 out of 10 appetizer, absolutely brilliant. Moving on to the mains. And if Ruby's has done one thing consistently well, it's presentation. Just look at this table. We were sitting outdoors, all the colors were popping, the textures were perfectly arranged. It honestly looks Pinterest worthy without trying too hard. This time I went with stuffed chicken. Again, this is a grilled chicken breast stuffed with cream cheese, spinach, mushrooms, and all of that. And the first thing you want to check with a dish like this is whether the chicken has dried out or not. Chicken breast is a lean meat, and the stuffed chicken dishes often struggle with retaining moisture and juiciness. But this, it was perfectly juicy, tender, and the sauce on top was creamy. It was made with cream cheese. It had a little bit of tanginess to it and a subtle hint of herbs and garlic. The sauce did not feel flat at all, and every bite was full of flavor. The vegetables were also fantastic. They had included green beans and broccoli, and they were perfectly cooked, not mushy at all, still had a little bit of bite to it. As someone who's big on vegetables, this was a very pleasant surprise. The mashed potatoes were also very smooth and buttery, just how I like them. Overall, I'd give this stuffed chicken an 8.5 out of 10. It was extremely satisfying and comforting and well executed. Next, I swapped plates to try the chicken marinara again, which, if you remember from my first visit, another friend of mine had ordered. This time I was with another friend and she had asked me to order for her, and I'd ordered the chicken marinara for her because I also wanted to see if it was still as good as the first visit. Presentation was a little different this time, which is something I always notice, but taste wise, somehow it had improved. The sauce was rich and well balanced. The chicken was tender. The potato gratin was even better than I remembered. It was all perfectly cooked. The rocket leaves added freshness, balancing out the richness of the dish. Honestly, this was again a 10 out of 10. It was a true winner. I am really happy to see that they were consistent, given that this was 4 months after my first visit when we first ordered it. A few years ago, I was living in England, and one of the dishes I used to have there often was fish and chips. Not because I love English fish and chips, but because they were cheap and convenient. And to be honest, I've never been a fan of English style fish and chips. I prefer my desi style Lahori fried fish, or even something like Thai style steamed lime fish. I like my fish to be flavorful. English fish and chips, I usually find them bland with almost no seasoning at all. So when my friend ordered this at Ruby's, I was curious to see how they had done it. My expectations were not very high to begin with because I don't like English fish and chips to begin with. But guys, this was below my expectations, which were already pretty low to begin with. And that's when it clicked. Suddenly, all those bad reviews I had read made complete sense. It really only takes one bad dish to completely shape your opinion of a place. And this dish was that one bad experience. If this had been my first visit, I probably would not have come back a second time, let alone a third. And I know most people don't go to restaurants 3 times to try and see, if the food is good. I'm doing this because I make these videos for my channel, but normally people don't go and give 3 chances to a restaurant to make up their mind. Let's start with the batter. Now, fish and chips is supposed to be a crispy dish, but this wasn't even close. The batter was soft. almost like the fish was wrapped in a piece of fabric. Guys, I'm not making it up. It was like they'd wrapped a cloth around the fish. I've had soggy fried fish at Pakistani weddings, and even that fish was crispier than this fish. And then there was this seasoning, or actually the lack of it. There was absolutely no salt, no flavor in this batter. The fish itself was also completely bland. Even in England, they at least sprinkle a little bit of salt after frying the fish. These guys had just completely forgotten about salt. And the fish itself was clearly not fresh. The texture gave it away. I have a feeling it had been frozen and then thawed because it didn't have that fresh, firm quality that you want. It was cooked all the way through, but it just felt lifeless. The fries were also completely standard, nothing special, just regular cut fries. And with fish and chips, I prefer a chunkier chip. They'd served it with mushy peas, which, if you know me, I don't like at all. If you meet me in person, one of the things I will bring up is how much I hate mushy peas. But surprisingly, these mushy peas were very well seasoned and they actually tasted good. Honestly, this was the only thing on the plate that was edible. I am not making this up, guys. I try to be very respectful even when the food isn't good, and I try to avoid using terms like yuck or disgusting for food, but this dish was just inedible. There was absolutely nothing to enjoy, nothing to savor. My friend barely had one or two bites and then she left the entire dish. It just goes to show how one bad dish can explain a restaurant's negative reviews. When the waiter came to ask about our food, I gave my feedback, and the manager also came out to hear exactly what went wrong. I think it's super important to be objective when giving feedback, and good restaurants actually appreciate it if you're specific and let them know what didn't work rather than just being rude or emotional. So, yeah, this fish and chips was a complete miss from my side. There was absolutely nothing that could save it. And now I completely understand why some people have left really negative reviews. One bad dish can ruin your entire experience, and this was definitely that dish. की जो पूरी क्रस्ट थी ना, इट वाज वेरी सॉगी. ठीक है, क्रिस्पी नहीं था. ठीक है, दूसरा बिल्कुल ही सीजन नहीं था. फिश जो थी ना, बिल्कुल नमक नहीं था. Okay, guys, the last thing we ordered at Ruby's was dessert. We went with a simple molten lava cake. After that fish and chips disaster, we just needed something sweet to reset, and this did the job. Now, given that the previous two visits I've had desserts at Ruby's that had really solid presentation, this felt a little flat compared to those two. I mean, it wasn't an ugly dish to look at, it just didn't have that magic that the previous two desserts did. Overall, I would give this an 8 out of 10. It was a decent tasting, reliable molten lava cake. I wasn't blown away, but it wasn't bad either. Something else I really appreciated about Ruby's, when the bill came, they didn't charge us for the fish and chips. And honestly, I think that speaks volumes about a restaurant. A lot of times, a dish might be slightly off. Maybe a burger isn't as juicy as you'd like, or the pasta is a little too spicy, or the dessert temperature just isn't perfect. Those are minor things, and you're still okay to pay for them. But the fish and chips, that was inedible. There was no way I would have wanted to pay for it, and I definitely would have left a bad review if I had been charged. The fact that Ruby's acknowledged it and didn't charge us, I really appreciated that. So, overall, despite that one bad dish, I would still strongly recommend Ruby's to anyone visiting Islamabad. Keep in mind, this isn't your usual desi style restaurant serving chicken tikka Alfredo pasta. This place aims for international standards, and in my experience, they've delivered that almost consistently. I've visited 3 times, I tried a variety of dishes each time, and only one dish fell short. So, my overall rating? Still a solid 9 out of 10. By Islamabad standards, this is one of the first restaurants that has truly impressed me in terms of international standard, high quality food. The reason I went so hard on the fish and chips is because I had higher expectations from Ruby's based on my previous visits. And that's a wrap on this video. Thank you so much for watching and coming along with me for all 3 weeks over the past few months. I hope you enjoyed this style of multi day, in depth restaurant review. If you did, let me know because I can do more of these. Visiting a place multiple times to really form a final verdict. Right now, I'm sitting in a park in Lahore doing the outro for a video about a restaurant in Islamabad. And my next video that's coming up on my channel is actually going to be from my trip to Karachi. I was in Karachi a little while ago and I went there for work. And I thought it would be fun to show you guys what I eat in Karachi when I go for work. And my line of work isn't your regular 9 to 5. I work in advertising and I was there for a television commercial shoot. And I thought it would be interesting to show you what my day is like on set at a television commercial shoot. Thank you so much for watching this really long video and stay tuned for my next video, which will be coming up on my channel next week from my trip to Karachi.